Hello, everybody. This is Jacek here. Welcome, everyone, on our webinar. Today, I am with Jan Vasek.
Hello, this is Jan.
So today's webinar will be about, in those days, we are looking for savings and in particular for how to achieve short-term savings. We will give you 4 stories. 2 will be about the sourcing, 2 will be about commodity prices, but we thought that we would do a little bit differently. So how not to achieve those short-term savings, or maybe we'll give you the horror stories showing that we will try to do short-term savings, but in the end, it couldn't work out for some reasons. So we thought that, the failures are always good to learn from. So we want to give you those 4 difficult stories and horror stories. Before we start, Jan, would you like to add anything for the introduction part?
No, I think everybody is looking forward to your presentation, Jacek, so go for it.
Okay, so I'll start with the first story then, straightforward, without further ado. This is the story where I'll tell you that we wanted to use e-auction. And to do e-auction, just a very brief introduction. To do e-auction is a specific type of negotiation where you have to prepare everything beforehand. All the preparation part is super important because when you launch the e-auction, no changes can be made. And in order to do e-auction, very, very high level overview, you need to have alternative suppliers, obviously. But the alternative, not just that we have few suppliers that we can collect offers from, but those have to be really possible to implement quickly. And then you need to be attractive as a client, and so that the suppliers want to place an offer to you, and those suppliers, it has to fit into your category strategy, because you somehow undermining the relationship with your suppliers when you e-auction them. So those 3 things you need to consider if you want to go to the e-auction. We had those things. We had those things in place, and we thought, okay, let's make it quick and dirty. Let's grab some quick savings. So e-auction. Here is I'll start with the result, just so that you know. I'll start with the results. So we go the Colombo way. First, we show you the outcome, and then I'll guide you through the process. So we had 8 suppliers, 4,000 SKUs. We divided those 4,000 SKUs into 12 lots, so because you cannot manage it otherwise in the e-auction system. It was English e-auction, 60 minutes. This is on the middle of the screen. You see what suppliers they were able to see. So they saw all the 12 lots, the unit, the price, and the rank. And the outcome of the auction was 46% savings, and we had 1,800 overtimes. Overtimes in the e-auction, for those of you who know e-auction, it's like if you have an offer placed in the very last moment, the e-auction will get an overtime automatically. It will prolong automatically so that the other suppliers have chance to requote, to change their quote, to respond to that. Usually you set it out like for 1 minute or 2 minutes over time. So if there was like 2 minutes of silence, no bid was placed, the e-auction will finish, and whoever was at first rank at the end of those 2 minutes of silence wins the business. But if you have 1,800 of those, that takes a lot of time. And so it took altogether 21 hours, including the midnight break. You may say 46% is not a bad idea. It's for 21 hours of work. We were talking millions here. Well, that may be not so bad. So where the horror comes in? Well, let me explain to you. First, this is the setup that was our idea. When you plan an e-auction, you have like 60 minutes for the e-auction. Then we anticipated somewhere around 15 minutes overtimes, because it usually happens. When you set up e-auction, also for the first 25 minutes or so, half an hour, nothing really happens. That's the time just to warm up for suppliers to make sure that they log in, they are in the system, they know how to click. Usually they also should have a test e-auction beforehand, but that's the time just to make sure that everything is working well. The e-auction, the bidding actually starts usually somewhere around 15 minutes before the end of the e-auction, and it's prolonged through the overtimes for another 15-20 minutes or so. That's the most usual situation. And that was also our plan, including 7% price reduction target, make it quick and dirty. And then, like I said, when you launch an e-auction, you need to make sure that everything is bottom up, because if things may go wrong, it will go wrong in the e-auction, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. The e-auction is to be, everyone needs to honor the e-auction results, both buyers and the suppliers. They need to honor the results. It's not by legal means that you can always somehow skip, especially if you, like me, in more agile approach to the business, but due to your credibility. If you don't want to lose your credibility by not awarding the winner of the e-auction to the business. After 60 minutes, we start the overtimes. First, after then we had those first 158 overtimes that took us 60 minutes. Here is the chart to the right-hand side. After 60 minutes of overtime, so that was already 2 hours, we were at 14% savings, and we had 158 overtimes. So imagine that you are spending 2 hours in front of your computer and clicking. That was a bit tiring for us, but for suppliers, that was even more, because they're waiting for their business. Stage number 2, after another 5 hours of overtimes, we had already 829 overtimes. The price went down to 35% below the initial prices. And here is in the blue one, it shows the overtimes, how those increases. We were at 7 p.m. in Poland, and some of those suppliers were from China, Kazakhstan, so farther to the east. That means that was midnight for them. So what to do? That was the first difficult moment. It never happened to me before that I had to pause the e-auction because of the time, differences, and I didn't expect that to happen. So we paused it. We sent a message to all the participants, all the suppliers, that the e-auction will start 8 a.m. the following day, Central European time. And it started. And then it went on for another 4 hours. So altogether, you imagine that you are spending in front of your computer following the e-auction 10 hours. So we had 9 hours overtime plus 1 hour the regular e-auction. 1,812 overtimes. After it started here at 8 a.m., it took another 4 hours. So here to the right-hand side, you have on the black one, it shows you the price decreases. On the blue one, it shows you how many overtimes it triggers. And now you may say, okay, 46% after 21 hours. It looked like, I built those couple of slides just to sort of give you the feelings on how it really is looking in the computer for so many hours. It was a bit tiring for us, but even more for suppliers. Imagine if you're a supplier, the business is attractive to you, you want to win it, and then every couple of minutes you have to click, you have to click, you have to click. You might be thinking that, okay, maybe the overtime, maybe the bid decrement was too high or too low. It was all right. So where's the catch? Where's the problem? Why, after those 21 hours, I felt like that what you see on the screen right now. I was not super happy. I felt that something was just not right. What can go wrong if you have 46% savings on a commodity? Those are catalog products. If you look at the process, and that's why I'm a big fan of process. When in doubt, just keep calm and follow the process. So here is the typical sourcing process. We just didn't do right. If you end up in a situation where in the e-auction you have 46% savings, and then there was 4,000 SKUs, probably what went wrong was that we did not identify properly the specs, and the suppliers, they did not quote apples to apples. So the preparation phase on a detailed specification and a supplier communication plan, the technical dialogue which should happen before the e-auction phase just didn't happen, because we want to make it quick and dirty. We want to capture the savings. So what you could have done instead of running it for 4,000 items, which increased the risk of suppliers would not exactly quote apples to apples, that some of them quoted different things. It's a commodity, those were commodity prices, those were commodities, those were catalog items, so very similar yet not identical. So that's one thing. They probably quoted different things because the dialogue with them beforehand did not happen in the right way. Second thing, which did not happen the right way, was the pressure on the suppliers in the RFQ round one. I always say that if you want to run an e-auction first, you need to have an RFQ and collect the prices, see where we are, and if there are too big discrepancies, something is wrong, you need to align with your suppliers, the specification, terms and conditions, and all those things. That particular thing was not done the right way because we wanted to make it quick, and then it hit us back a lot. So how can you do that? So if you have in particular 4,000 items in your catalogs and you want to make it quick, then what you should do, you should identify 10, 15 items, 20 maybe, the most relevant representatives, the most standard ones, the high runners, the A category. And make sure that you have very clear understanding and specification, or even in the brand names, that everybody understands that. And then you send this one out for the RFQ. Then in the RFQ, you should have seen similar prices. You should see also, you should be in contact with your suppliers, and then you can publish the e-auction eventually. If whatever the savings you achieve on those 15, 20 items, then you try to negotiate to extend the discount level to the remaining B and C category items, the remaining 3,900 or so. That would be one of the things if you want to make it quick. Otherwise, there is a huge risk that you would end up like we did into detailed discussion. We were never able to implement those savings because during the implementation phase, we were discovering that those were not exactly the things that we thought that we were buying. So we tried to make it too quick. But then you have two outcomes. I mean, the story does not necessarily need to go super wrong. You have two potential scenarios that you can draw from here. Short-term savings, you make it purely commercial. You harvest the 7% price decrease on whatever you have with your incumbent supplier on this, and that specification is lock-in. It's the same specification as it was in the past. And the commercial savings has that advantage that it starts and ends on the procurement. So you don't need to involve anyone else in the company. You just harvest, you just shave the 7% out of the price with your suppliers, thank and bank, and you're good to go. Or you can go long-term, but then you would have to make it would be a value engineering project when the specification is not locked, it's open, and then we are discussing, can we switch that item to that item? And you end up into 4,000 SKUs that you need to validate if you can really take it. That is the two options that you have: quick and dirty, shave your 7%, and you're good to go, or the CPO or the owner of the company, they are to decide, okay, we can invest now because the 46% out of this category, it's significant enough that we would spend that time going forward to and then harvest much more. Or actually, you can also try to do a little bit of both, which we also did. Collect the here and now whatever we have with incumbent supplier, and then with incumbent supplier go through the potentials that we have discovered during the e-auction, that perhaps there is a chance to change the some of the specification and go into the value engineering project. So that was the story. That was my story. The first one: how wrong can you go if you want to make it too quick and you don't have the right communication, you don't have the right pressure on the suppliers beforehand, you don't have the good dialogue on the specs. You put too many specs, too many items into the sourcing projects. This would never end up to be a quick one.